They've handed you a broken narrative, one that chains you to obedience, conformity, and expectations that were never yours to begin with. And the most tragic part? You've accepted it as truth for as long as you can remember.
From childhood, you were told that youth is the pinnacle of life, that once you pass 30, the decline begins, that by 40, the best years are behind you and there's little left but waiting out the inevitable. None of that is true. Life doesn't truly unfold when you're young and desperately trying to play by the rules. Life begins when you realize that everything you've constructed, your career, your roles, your achievements, has been built on borrowed blueprints designed by others. According to Carl Jung, this realization doesn't strike in your 20s. It often comes in midlife around 40. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? That's because no one dares to tell you the truth. The first 4 decades of existence are little more than rehearsal. They're a collection of attempts, failures, victories, and identities shaped by outside demands. For 40 years, you've been molded into a character that fits the standards of society. But then something shifts. A crack appears in the mask you've worn so carefully. Suddenly, the motivations that once kept you going no longer hold meaning. The rewards feel hollow. The sense of identity you clung to begins to dissolve. Questions creep in. Is this really me? Who am I when no one is watching? How much of my life is genuinely mine? This is the threshold no one warns you about. It's not collapse, it's awakening. Jung called it individuation. The breaking away from imposed roles to uncover your true self. The first part of life is spent wearing costumes. Child, student, professional, spouse, parent. Rarely do we stop to ask, where am I in all of this? But when midlife arrives, the weight of those disguises becomes unbearable, and the awakening begins. It's frightening, because the things that defined you, success, validation, belonging, suddenly lose their value. You're left staring into an abyss with 2 choices. Keep clinging to the old mask and live the next 40 years as a replica of the first, or strip it all away and begin again. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you've reached 40 without questioning the life you've built, you're still asleep. And most people are. They prefer the comfort of routine, even if it's false, rather than risk the vertigo of authenticity. But those who face the truth discover something radical: freedom. The moment you stop living by expectation, you begin living on your own terms. You realize the path you've been walking is not the only road. You can turn, choose, and redefine what success actually means for you. So the hard question becomes, how much of your life reflects your essence, and how much is just performance for others? Are you alive or merely acting? These questions are easy to bury under busyness. But eventually, the illusion fractures. Eventually, the weight of living someone else's story will crush you. And in that moment, you'll face the choice. Continue the charade or start your revolution. Because 40 is not decline, it's ignition. It's the birth of possibility. Yet awakening is not gentle. Shedding identities you've worn for decades doesn't feel liberating at first. It feels like emptiness. For so long, you've defined yourself through achievement, approval, and how others perceive you. When you strip that away, you're left with silence and the most terrifying question of all. Who am I when nothing is left to perform? That's why so many refuse the work. They cling to the familiar lie because emptiness terrifies them. But Jung knew what few dare to accept. Emptiness is not the end. It's the beginning. In that silence, you can finally rebuild, not on borrowed scripts, but on who you actually are. And here's where the true work begins. Finding your essence is not a sudden epiphany. It's a long process of experimentation, failure, and rediscovery. And it is utterly solitary. No teacher, book, or formula can hand it to you. Yourself is not found in borrowed advice. It's unearthed through your own choices, your own risks, your own courage to start over. Most people never get here. They hold tight to false security, to the comfort of what they know. But if you dare to face the emptiness and rebuild, you discover what life was always meant to be. Not about fulfilling expectations, but surpassing them. And then something shifts again. The world you once knew loses its grip. Conversations that mattered now feel shallow. Goals that once drove you now seem absurd. Fears that kept you stuck lose their power. It's as though the veil has been lifted, and you can see reality without illusions. But awakening comes with its own wound: loneliness. You'll notice relationships fade. Those built only on superficial roles no longer survive. You'll see that many people around you are not walking the same path. It's painful, but it's also necessary. Because when you release the false self, you also release the people attached only to that mask. What remains is space for new connections that align with your true identity. This is phase 2 of the journey. Not just letting go, but building anew. Some collapse into despair here, longing for the comfort of their old, false life. Others realize the gift they've been handed, the freedom to choose consciously what kind of life to create. For the first time, you are free to decide without the shadow of outside approval. But with that freedom comes fear, because if you fail, you can't blame anyone else. And this fear keeps many stuck in limbo, half awake, but unwilling to step forward. Jung warned us, the path of individuation is not smooth. It demands destruction before creation, death before rebirth. You will pass through darkness, but on the other side lies a freedom most people will never taste. When you live according to your truth, anxiety dissolves. The constant chase for recognition fades. The need to fit in disappears. What emerges instead is a peace untouched by circumstance, a peace rooted in authenticity. And here's the final revelation: this process never ends. Individuation is not a destination but a lifelong journey. Each stage of life brings new masks to break, new truths to uncover. Once you've awakened, you can never fully go back to sleep. That changes everything. You begin to live intentionally, to surround yourself with people who resonate with your soul rather than your facade. You stop reacting to life and start choosing. And eventually, you face the ultimate question. Not what should I do with my life, but who do I want to be? Answer honestly, and everything else falls into place. But now that you've seen this, you can't unsee it. You can try to bury it under routine, but the crack is there, and it will only widen. Ignorance may have been easier, but once you wake up, doing nothing becomes unbearable. The truth is, you don't need to know the entire path. You only need to take the first step. Fear and uncertainty are proof that you're moving forward, because real growth is always uncomfortable. So stop waiting for the perfect sign. No one is coming to rescue you. The perfect time will never arrive. The only moment you have is now. But don't expect applause. Living authentically threatens those still trapped in imitation. They will doubt you, criticize you, even resent you, not because of who you are, but because your courage exposes their paralysis. That's why you must stand firm. This path is not for them. It's for you. So the choice is yours. Retreat into the old script, or step into a life that is finally your own. And if you choose the latter, remember this: it is never too late. No matter how many years you've lived as someone else, what matters is what you do from this moment on. Your life is unwritten. The ending is not predetermined. Everything that comes next depends on you. So, are you ready to live for real? If you've made it this far, leave one phrase as a reminder: awakening is irreversible. Because once you step into truth, there is no turning back.